Joy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So let's start with we just had an election in November not that long ago, right? What were your takeaways from that election? How do you see the kind of results of that election impacting the council and the city going forward?
Awesome. First of all, thank you all for having me. This is not one of the questions you sent me, but we'll go off.
Yeah, those are all fake.
They're all fake, and I came prepared. So the question was, what did we take from this election? And I think some of the most important things that I know that I personally took was looking at some of the people that ran, so some of the candidates that ran, and what was their platform, what message was resonating with people. We heard affordability was key. A lot of young people are struggling in our city, and we heard that from a lot of folks. We also heard a common theme across all platforms, which was housing, whether it was owning, renting, rents, or a mortgage. Housing was a big key player in that. I also heard a lot of people talk about childcare, young families wanting to start in the city and trying to figure out how they were going to pay for childcare and all the costs that come being a young family in Seattle. And we also heard from folks too about, hey, we want Seattle to be positive as well. What are we looking forward to? And a lot of the candidates that ran sold these things of, hey, this is what we have to look forward to. Not about, hey, this is what's not working, but this is what we have to look forward to. And so I took those messages, that's what I had been hearing when I was in neighborhoods talking to people. I'm constantly dialed into neighborhoods, and that was a lot of the feedback we were getting, but I know that it was very well shown in this election with the candidates who won.
So you're the new president of the Seattle City Council and unanimous kind of consensus pick as council president. So, so congratulations on that, first of all. But yeah, but also tell us a bit about how do you see the role of council president? What do you see, your role being now that you're in charge?
Okay, so let me tell you the lessons I learned from last year. Number one, communication is key. So oftentimes at council, we would have different meetings. We would have people say certain things at council on the dais, and they would get reported differently, or they would show up on social media very differently. And so I realized that communication, owning our own narrative, was going to be incredibly important. So you will see on our social media, on my social media, on a lot of council members' social media, I'm pushing them to push their own narrative, to talk about things so you can hear it from them and not necessarily a reporter or someone who heard something or an insider, for them to own their own narrative. The second thing that I think was important was how we controlled public commenters. And when I say control, meaning how we manage that flow of when they came in, being respectful, humanizing folks, making sure we made eye contact with them, just setting that tone so they could feel like, number one, it's a safe place to say, to articulate and express their First Amendment rights, but also a place where we were going to embrace dialogue over division. That was key. Third, last but not least, was humanizing the council. Oftentimes, we're caricatures. We are people that you read about. But I'm pretty sure if people knew that Dan Strauss was a kid from Ballard, grew up here, they would maybe treat him a little differently or look at him a little differently. Or Bob, the public safety hat chair, is also, and I said this in my speech, a guy who goes on Saturdays and sits in a hot gym, gets yelled at by his wife, running a CYO clock at a basketball game for his kid, right? If they could see that side, or Rob, the dad from Delridge, they could see us as humans. I do believe that people could find that human connection. So those are the three things that I learned from last year that you're going to see us pushing, that we are just people in Seattle. We're just one of your friendly neighbors that happens to be sitting on the council as well.
So let me ask a follow-up to that, because that seems very optimistic
Yeah.
about
optimistic.
what the vibe is going to be in council chambers during
Yeah,
meetings
of
and
course.
stuff. We all know what it's been like at various points in the past. But there was also, though, this kind of assertion, and I think it got some traction, that the previous council, that there was a toxicity, like, there was bad blood between council members, that it was people were mean to each other and stuff like that. First of all, do you think that was an accurate portrayal of the last council? And if so, or if not, like, what's going to be different now?
Yeah, it was very clear that there were some council members that might have had disagreements that left the council and had different opinions and different experiences that other council members had. So I do not deny that. I also know that we needed to do a little bit of a reset at council in terms of just finding out what our commonality is. So oftentimes I grew up in a city where it did not, we had more labels about your neighborhood. Okay, I'm from the Central District. Someone's like, oh, I'm from Ballard. Oh, I'm from the South End. But we were all Seattleites. And I think what I'm trying to get everyone to understand, and I think we've all have a common, we have a commonality amongst the council members, is that we are all council members on this team Seattle. We might have different perspective, different views, but at the end of the day, we're going to be respectful. And I said that in my speech coming in, that the respect is going to be the foundation of our success. And I've seen that in people's doors open, being able to go in and out of people's offices, on the dais, being respectful for when people are talking. Now, it's only week 3, okay? So let me just say that, right? But I do feel like there's a little bit of a shift of people understanding we're on the same team here, and especially as our federal government, and we've seen the shift in our federal government, we see the overreach, we see those pieces, that we all have to be on the same team. I call it the piece where we're all humans. We all think that we're, against each other until the aliens come from outer space, and now we're all a part of the human race, and we're all like, we need to band together. And so that's where I kind of feel like we're at, where you're gonna find more commonality, because we see an external threat, coming into Seattle.
Let me follow up on the Trump administration, right?
Yeah.
Because it certainly seems to me, in fact, I think back in September, Trump even said, like, the big war is the war within, right? He seems to have kind of declared, in some sense, war on blue cities and the values and culture of those cities, which he sees as somehow, he's had all sorts of various names for it. There's all sorts of concerns about how the federal government is operating in Seattle. ICE, there was just a thing where 6 Seattle public schools had to kind of lock in place over just rumors that ICE was in the vicinity and stuff like that. So how does this play out over the next year for the council? How does the council respond to Trump and the administration? Do we need to calm the waters? Do we need to take them on more strongly? What's your take on that?
I think it's a little bit of everything. So last week when we saw what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good, you saw council members immediately come out with statements to just completely reject that type of behavior from ICE and federal government overreach, and how that was elevated on different social medias or how they were in different news legacy media. You saw that immediately right away. The second piece I think we need to do, and we have to kind of we see what's happening on social media, but I think we're oftentimes losing sight of our immigrant and refugee community that has told us telling us what they want. Joy, we need resources. We want, to make sure that we're not pressing buttons when you're saying certain things. We want to make sure that, we can be able to navigate certain issues if something happens. And so we're taking the lead from them. Oftentimes. So when people hear maybe we are not doing something as fast enough or we're not saying certain things, we are taking the lead from a lot of these immigrant and refugee groups. And especially in our office, we're one of the few offices that has an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs in the country, where we actually gave and I got to give a shout out to Councilmember Rink, who wrote an amendment to give them even more funds for this year to be able to have for legal defense, make sure people have resources for the different groups, housing, food, all these pieces that make sure communities are taken care of. We're taking the lead from them. And so I don't want to get away with folks that want us to do certain things that might not be close to a lot of those populations. I think it's going to be a delicate balance of that.
So let me ask about the new council itself, right? Along with you becoming council president, we've got a couple new council members, right? Eddie Lynn in District 2, Dion Foster, citywide. They certainly won big in their races, and they were running kind of more in the progressive lane than sort of the moderate lane. So there's a little bit of an ideological shift on the council, and it seems like the conventional wisdom that's come out of all of that is that we got this kind of ideologically really mixed council, right? People
Yeah.
are talking about this 3-3-3, right? We're all trying to put you in boxes, right?
Yeah.
There's three over here on the left and three on the,
Yeah.
on the center and three kind of in between, and you being part of the three in between. So is that how you see, how do you divvy up this council, and how do you see the kind of ideological interplay among the 9 of you?
Well, number one, I hate labels.
Every politician says that.
Yeah, I hate labels. If I had asked this room right now, how many people would consider themselves progressive? Like just a show of your hands.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you. Okay. But how many people maybe not care about labels and they just want to get stuff done? Okay. Yeah, it was. It was a good trap.
The progressives aren't liking where you're going.
The progressives, y'all don't like when I come tap dance on your side. No, I'm just fine. Y'all don't like it because I call myself a free agent in a way where I say this with all love. I think we've gotten away. Progressives are really good, and I've said this before, really good at breaking things that need to be broken. But now we have to show how we're going to build them back up. And I want to be a part of that party that builds up systems that are functional, that we're not looking at perfection, that are not super aesthetically appeasing. We have been focused in Seattle, hyper-focused on aesthetics, about what does it sound like? Does it make you feel good? What does it look like? Instead of the functionality. And so if you can focus on the functionality and have a delicate balance of both, that's the party I want to be in. I don't care what label it is. I just want to make sure that our parks are clean, that our kids are safe, that our roads, our potholes. I've said this before, I'm not going to progressively fill your pothole or conservatively fix the sidewalk. I say that to everyone. I just want to get stuff done and make sure that I can focus on those common shared goals of the better basic government, just city basic government as best as possible.
So let me ask about the new mayor, right?
Yeah.
Katie Wilson really came out of nowhere to win that race to become our new mayor. You obviously had a long-standing family and personal friendship with Bruce Harrell, the outgoing mayor. So talk a little bit about that transition. What's your relationship like with the new mayor? Have you guys had a chance to kind of sit down and talk? What's that been like?
Yeah, it was, well, it was a transition. I think we saw the former mayor in government for 16 years. So we saw a little bit of the old guard versus like the new guard, like the exchanging. Old Seattle, new Seattle, and what is this identity going to be? And we all had a great working relationship with the former mayor. I expect to have a great working relationship with Mayor Wilson. That's what Seattle deserves. I respect the office, and I know as all council members we do. And will we have disagreements like we did with the previous mayor? Absolutely. But I think oftentimes, I think people are going to see that we have more shared values rather than differences. I'll give you an example. The mayor and I both believe in groceries are too high in Seattle. We believe that, I go to Tucson, I can get a bag of groceries for $30. Gas is $2.50, by the way, down there, but I just want to throw that out there. But I can get groceries, and the affordability is way different in Tucson. But we believe in Seattle that groceries should be affordable, food access, totally agree. The way we get there is very different, right? You have one theory about, hey, government-owned grocery stores, and I have a theory of, well, if we just did some things differently operationally in the Seattle, maybe we can drive down those costs for that business. Very different, but the outcomes, we still want lower groceries. If we can start not from the ground up, but backwards and say, hey, what are the outcomes that we want? Okay, we want cheaper groceries. Awesome. Okay, how do we get there, right? What's the next step to that? And we work backwards from that. I think that that methodology and thinking will get us closer to our goals rather than us fighting on the ground about which ramp on the freeway we're going to take, right? So that's where I want to be, and I think we're going to have more common shared goals than anything.
So let me ask a little bit more about a follow-up on the Mayor Wilson won very close mayor's race, right? It was, I think, 2,000 votes in the end, that her margin of victory. closest race in modern Seattle history. We've got former Mayor Greg Nichols here, who won a close race back in 2001. Yeah, that was recent history. But this was even closer, right, than the race that Mayor Nichols won a few years ago. So does that have an impact here? And the reason I ask this is when Bruce Harrell won in 2021, he won a big victory.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, for the first few years of his mayoralty, he had kind of sky high approval ratings, and there was this sense, at least a sense that I had. You can tell me I'm wrong about this, but that he had a lot of political capital, and the council was pretty deferential to the mayor, at least in the first couple 3 years of his term. Is that the same vibe now? Are you guys going to be like, hey, if the mayor comes to us and says, I want this, and this, you guys are going to be like, okay, let's figure out how we do it? Or is there going to be a little bit more of a back and forth, do you think?
I think there could be, so some things I think that the mayor brings to the table for the council, there might be like, hey, we have alignment, let's figure out how we execute this and do this. Do I expect some things that come to the council where there will be back and forth? Absolutely. There are 9 council members. The only time we agree on stuff is usually at the beginning of the year, right? When it's just like stuff coming through the legislation or, just things that are beginning, like the first couple weeks, the unanimous votes. So do I believe that we'll have a little back and forth? Yes. Do I feel like hopefully a lot of the legislation that is sent down to council is baked with council members. So there is some type of, alignment and agreement with council members where we can kind of make sure that the work in the committee can kind of just be able to put, just the paint color on the car so we can keep it going because we have an agreement and we don't have to build it in committee. So, I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of work like that done. When we have bills come out, I have a new thing now, and I've learned my lesson with a lot of bills that we presented. But we have a thing where it's people, process, policy. So who are the people involved? And this is taken from Marcus Lemonis because he does people, process, product. So it's people. Who are the people involved? So we talk about if we're doing a bill, who are we getting? What advocates? What labor? What community? What is the process that we're running? Are we running meetings? Are we doing outreach? What is the feedback we're getting? Making sure that that process is really well. And then what is the policy that has come out from there? So I'm hoping that when we're working with Mayor Wilson, that we'll be a part of the people piece in this because I think that's going to be important as we're pushing bills through.
Let's talk about some of the issues.
Yeah.
What do you see as the big priority issues for the council in 2026?
Yeah, so some of the issues that I know that we've heard, and then I'll go into, because maybe the next question will be, what do you see as some of the issues?
I am going to ask you about your priorities too.
Okay, so some of the stuff we have coming up at council levies, we have the implementation of the Families Education Levy, so that's going to be important. We also have a library levy that's going to be on the ballot. We also have phase 2 of my favorite, the comprehensive plan. That is amazing, right, Jesse Simpson?
And you chaired the comp plan committee, right, for the phase 1.
I did.
Yeah.
That was an amazing experience. I'll say that. I will say that.
That can be read many ways.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. We had tree activists. We had people about zoning. It was a good mix of folks. So we have our comprehensive plan, which is phase 2, which we're going to talk about the height of the different neighborhood zones, regional centers, urban centers, the height of stuff. We also have the Seattle Transit Measure coming up that we're going to have to do. So there's a lot of things that are on our plate. I'm sure I forgot one, but there's a lot of things on our plate that are coming down for council, in addition to some of the stuff that we're seeing, people have on their ice, and saying, hey, what are you guys doing to protect us as a city? Local government's the front porch of the city, and we need you all to stand up and protect us when we're under these threats. So that's going to be a conversation this year. Also, federal funding cuts potentially and how those impact people, how those impact programs. We also have a big budget deficit, so we have Budget Chair Strauss, who I know is going to have his hands full. He always starts early in the process to engage with people and community, and then the council members as well during his finance meeting as well. Those are the things that are more internally, and then I can talk about externally what we've heard from people as well.
And there was a lot of continuity, right, in sort of the committee assignments. A lot of the committee chairs, the council members who had certain committee chairs last session kept them. This year, Dan Strauss kept budget, and so what was new in the committee chairs, right? You have
One of the committee chairs, going down the line, Maritza Rivera, Libraries Education, she kept that. Dan Strauss kept the Finance Committee. Rob Saka kept Transportation. We did add the Waterfront and the Seattle Center to that committee. We also had Public Safety. Bob Kettle chairs that. For Dion Foster, Office of Housing and Civil Rights and Arts. So we combine that together. So she's running that. Eddie Lynn, God bless him, has stepped in to run land use. And so he's going to be running that and the comprehensive plan. He wanted to run it, so he's going to watch this. Thank you, Councilmember Lynn. I appreciate you taking that on. I wanted to keep public utilities. I love public utilities. Interesting fact, it takes 35 minutes for when you flush something down the toilet in District 3 to get to our wastewater treatment over in Discovery Park.
You've been timing it with a stopwatch?
No. They told me this. So it's quicker than the bus, quicker than a car. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's kind of cool. So it pumps up and down. It's pretty dope. And so I like public utilities. That's what I kept. And I also took on some of the governance stuff as well. And then Deborah Juarez is City Light and Parks. And I believe that's it. Deborah Juarez, we moved her around a little bit. So I don't think I missed anyone.
Let me ask about the comp plan in particular. Obviously, Phase 2 is coming this year.
Oh, I missed Councilmember Rink because she's going to. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rink, she is doing Office of Economic Development. She also has Human Services, and she also has Office Labor as well. So
Great, thank you.
I didn't want to forget her. She will get mad.
Comp plan Phase 2. So you talked earlier that when you looked at sort of the lessons of this last election, one of them was there does seem to be a broad feeling like we got to do more on housing, and the affordability issues around housing and the price of housing. Does that mean we're going to go? And the other political thing, I'm on the record for years now saying that urbanism is the fastest rising political force in the city. If you look at the chamber index polling they do every 6 months, they ask some of the same questions. They've been doing it for about 5 years now. And you can just see the graph of people who say they're more open to density in their neighborhoods and stuff like that going up. And I think there was a criticism from the urbanist community and from the left of the previous mayors, I would say kind of status quo kind of approach to the Phase 1 of the comp plan. So does that all add up to we're going to go bigger in Phase 2, or is it too soon to tell, or where are we at on that?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see where the mayor lands on this with our Office of Planning and Development. But this is what I will tell you. I've had more friends move out of Seattle into different areas, either not just King County, but out of the state. So a lot of my friends have moved because they can't afford to live here. I think about my parents who were making $65,000 to $70,000 each, bought their home for $135,000 in Rainier Beach in 1996, and were able to plant roots. And when I'm talking to a lot of young people that are, trying to figure out where they're planting roots, a lot of people have said, "Joy, I'm just going to be a renter forever," and I know that, or I can't afford to buy a home, and so I have to move out of the city. And that really hurts because you're listening to people who want to build roots, who want to plant seeds, and so it's a combination of zoning. Absolutely. It's a combination of us getting our stuff together at the city for permitting and making sure that when someone's building a new apartment building that we're not making them also replace the massive water line in the middle of the street as well. There's a little bit of making sure that folks can be able to convert their house into a duplex and a triplex and ADU. I've heard people say we're not gonna, that's not gonna be the only answer. I get it, but I also know that there's a ton of people I talk to that I've seen when I'm walking around my neighborhood and I'm walking my dog Santana and I'm looking at people's houses. I've seen more conversions of homes that have added a basement unit, that have added an ADU, that have converted their house into a triplex or a duplex. I ran into a sixplex off Yesler the other day. I was shocked because I'd never seen a sixplex before, and it was just so beautifully crafted. But you're going to see more of that in Seattle. The original affordable housing providers were just the mom and pops who wanted to rent out their basement to keep their home so they could pass it on to their kids. They didn't raise rent like that. They were just, hey, we just want people that are going to take care of our homes. And so it's a little bit of everything of having our developers build housing, having our people that live in Seattle build housing, making it easier for anybody and everybody to build housing. I know we've all read the book, Abundance by Ezra Klein, and that's all the progressives put in my face. Have you read that book, Joy? Have you seen it? And what have you learned? And it's like, thank you, Mr. Teacher. But the key with that, and I totally agree with it, is just building a ton of housing, but it's not just going to be through zoning. It's going to be a little bit of everything, a part of the process in our city.
Let me ask about a couple more issues.
Yeah.
Well, let me start with homelessness, because you and I have had a conversation, and this may get to some of your priorities too. You and I have you've been talking about, you've got some ideas for how we might be able to better move forward on homelessness in terms of dealing with encampments and stuff like that. What do you see happening on that front this year?
Yeah, 2 years in, and to not make a lot of progress where we're at right now is a little disappointing, especially when you see a lot of the dollars that have been spent and understanding, okay, what are the impacts that you want to have? And so the investment still needs to be there, but I think our strategy needs to shift a little bit. And the one thing that I called for last year, and I had to re-engage with people just to figure out, okay, what is the strategy behind this, was when I'm talking to firefighters, police officers, mental health support workers, or anyone that might be trying to figure out an encampment or be the traffic controller for certain issues on our streets. They're always telling me, Joy, I don't have a landing zone. I don't have a shelter to take this person. I don't have a place to take this person if they're suffering from mental health. I don't have a place for someone if they need treatment. So I have been calling them stabilization zones. They are not new. I know they have tent cities and other things in our city, but I'd like to see more of those communities in a way where we can be able to take people to. The second thing.
So it's a kind of authorized, sort of larger.
Correct.
Encampment kind of situation?
Yes. So encampment where you have water, sewer, garbage, you have social workers. Some people have said, well, Joy, why don't we put tiny homes there? I want all of the above. It's not one or the other to me. So I would like all of the above. The second thing is I would like to see our health department with King County, the harm reduction that we do, I would like them to pair that with a rapid response for people to get treatment. So instead of giving someone a referral and thinking they can go across town 30 minutes to get treatment the next day, for us to have some type of rapid response to treatment for people. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not a professional, but what I do know is what we're doing is not working, and I think we can disrupt patterns for folks that are suffering on our streets to have those readily accessible to people. And those might be mobile treatment centers that we've seen, whatever it is that can break up that person to snap them back into reality, to say, hey, I know you don't want to be here. I know this drug is 100 times more potent than heroin or anything. I had a social worker tell me, Joy, it would be easier for me to talk to people on heroin than it is for me to talk to folks that are on fentanyl right now. That the step down from fentanyl is heroin. And they were telling me about their challenges into just stabilizing people and getting them to a certain place of reality. And so I think our approach right now has been based on data that has been on drugs that are not the type of drugs that we're seeing on the street. And we're doubling down on these processes, and we're doubling down on this. And I'm saying, can we just can we just try something different? Can we still have the same investment and money, but can we just try a different strategy to this approach?
So the new mayor, obviously, she's been spending a lot of time in these early days getting her administration stood up, working through all the department directors and making
Yeah.
decisions about who she's keeping. But the one big marker she put down, and she put this down during the campaign and has reiterated it since, is she wants to do 4,000, get 4,000 unhoused people into some form of shelter over the course of her term.
Yeah.
And she wants to go big and go now, right? And so she's been talking about maybe 500 new shelter slots between now and the end of May or the World Cup. So have you and the council started to engage on that? Do you see that fitting in? I mean, that's a short timeline, right?
absolutely.
And there's going to be big decisions involved, and we need to wait to see what the mayor says about how she wants to do that, right? But it's going to cost money, all of those sorts of things. That's going to be all sort of council decisions. So do you see the urgency there and do you think we're going to have 500 new units of shelter by June?
This is what I am looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing the plan, for it to get sent to council. We are willing and ready to work. We all believe that we want to get people inside and off the street. All of the council members believe that. And so we're going to be working and willing and defining out like, hey, what's the plan? What's different than what you think we've been doing? What can we do better? And I think we're sitting and just ready to engage. And then also trying to figure out, okay, where's that money coming from? So is it progressive revenue? So what are the progressive outcomes? Are we taking from something? So what is the plan? And I think that we're willing. I can't comment on that, but I know that we are all willing and ready to work with the mayor to make sure that people are getting off the streets and inside.
You mentioned progressive revenue, right? And
Yeah.
municipal cap gains tax came up in the last year's budget session.
Yeah.
You were kind of on the, you voted for it in committee, ended up voting against on the final vote. Where are you on progressive revenue? It obviously seems like with the election of Eddie and Dion, there's going to be, and the mayor said that she wants as part of the budget process to bring forward, it sounds like a couple of ideas on progressive revenue.
Oh, for sure. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Progressive revenue should equal progressive outcome. And I've put my flag in the sand, and I said that any tax that we might vote on or bring to the table should put money back in families' pockets. I do not want to see any money go back into government and bureaucracy. And so if that's a universal basic income, if that is a child tax credit, if that is a health care credit, if that's a credit for you to be able to take care of your aging parents, if that's a food access card, I don't know what it is, but I don't want any more money going back into our government process. I believe that if we are really serious progressively on the redistribution of wealth, then if you want to do a tax, it should go back into families' pockets directly as much as possible. So that's kind of where I stand.
Okay.
That's what I'll be looking for.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. What are the taxes going towards?
Yeah. Well, I have one last question, one last issue area I want to talk about, and then I want to open it up to questions so we get the audience involved. Public safety, right? Probably, maybe the place where kind of left and center left in the city have sometimes, butted heads the most around issues around public safety, policing, street disorder.
Yeah.
How do you see, are there specific issues you see coming up? How do you see all of that stuff playing out, right? And we add into that not just police staffing, but police reform, right? Questions around the culture of SVD.
Well, I wish public safety was a nonpartisan issue. I'll just say that, but it's not, and I get it. And every neighborhood has their own different ideas or needs and wants on what public safety is. In the last 2 years, I have learned that it's not just how many social providers you might have, how many officers, all these different things, that the public safety is, it's a system of first responders. You also have your judges. You also have your social care providers. There are different type of public safety levers all in the city. And one of the things, the challenges I know that we're going to have in Seattle is, do we want more police or less? And whatever the federal government is happening on that level really affects Seattle on different things. And do I believe that we should have more officers on the street? I believe we should have a healthy number comparison to what our other counterpart cities have. So we can be able to have low response times. We can be able to have investigations, that we can see beat cops. The one thing I will say this, no matter what party lines, everyone has said, Joy, I want to see our officers walking around and knowing the neighborhood and talking to people. So can we just start from there with saying, hey, can we get our officers out the car, walking and talking to people and connecting with folks and humanizing themselves? Can we just start there? I do believe we can. And then we can get to how many officers and what does that look like, and all those different things. The second thing I'm excited for is our care team and them being way more visible and being able to go on calls without an officer, but just being in neighborhoods.
And the care team is the kind of, is the alternative kind of
correct
social worker response.
They're
right?
Thank you. The social worker response when there's like a mental health piece, but again, they don't have places for people to go, and so that's going to be the next bottleneck in this in this public safety system, where now we have to have places for people to go. We have a phenomenal fire department. The fire department gets left out a lot in the public safety piece. They have a Health One program that will respond to people with social workers all across Seattle and be able to give them medical attention, be able to take them to the hospital, check on them. Do I need to get you meds? Who can I call to be able to check on you for food? All different types of things. And so just building out that system is going to be key, but landing zones is going to be the key.
All right, let's open it up to audience questions. Peter. Yeah.
Peter, and that's so congratulations again, Councilmember. I'm curious if you think Seattle has anything to learn from what Mayor Lurie has done in San Francisco and what the other mayor works in Portland. So Danny West, you wrote a recent article about stuff Keith Wilson took in Portland with respect to public safety and homelessness. And of course, Lurie has been doing it for a while. Do you think there are models there or examples that we could learn from?
Yes, and just let me repeat the question so that everyone understands. That the question from Peter was the example of Mayor Daniel Lurie, who got elected just a little over a year ago in San Francisco and has been making a lot of changes in terms of some of their policies around homelessness and crime and issues like that. And then Mayor Keith Wilson, who's also now in Portland, who's also now been in office for a year and has made some pretty significant moves also in moving towards opening more shelter in his first year. And so the question was, are there lessons or models there in Portland or San Francisco that we can take away?
San Francisco, the turnaround city that we've seen, where what I've learned from Mayor Lurie is basics of government and making them work better. So for example, we talk about affordability, and a lot of people want to hit that home run, or I'm going to give a ton of sports analogies, so I apologize. So I'm going to give you a football one. Okay, everyone wants to throw the Russell Moon ball on affordability. So what is that? Hey, I want a comprehensive plan and just get this going and upzone the whole city, and that is a 30-year process. And what you've seen is I go back to 3.5 yards. I need 3.5 yards a carry to get a first down every time. And to do that, I know that if I can make sure your bus runs on time, that you are not late to picking up your kid, you don't have your $15 fee, and then you can be able to afford other things in life. Or if I can clean up that park and make sure that there's an operational restroom, that you don't have to take a break at halftime, getting in your car, spending gas, going to a coffee shop to go to use the restroom and spending $8 on a latte. And so these are like the basic things that I think that the mayor in San Francisco, when he's talking about affordability, is thinking about it in that very granular piece of affordability, of these little micro actions that when you look up, next thing you know, you have a first down, and next thing you know, guess what? You're not throwing an interception like my guy did for Miami last night. You are in the end zone like the quarterback did with Indiana when he ran it in and got hit twice, right, and did a dive in. So I think those are the things that I learned from the mayor in San Francisco. The mayor in Portland had made promise of getting people off the street and inside and opening up shelters. I think it's going to take I don't want to say a lot in Seattle, but I do believe that we can do it in Seattle with public-private partnership and a sense of direction as well. That is very key. We have to have a sense of direction. People like to meet here just to meet, to talk about the next meeting. So let's have a sense of direction. And I think what we can do is take the examples of Mayor Wilson in Portland and find out, hey, what did you do? How did you get it working? What makes sense? I'd like to do a deeper dive and to figure out what he did to make that stuff go and be able to hit those goals, so we can start implementing those here in Seattle. Oftentimes, we make things so hard. We're like, we want to be the first in Seattle, or we want to do it differently and creatively. And I'm like, no, let's just take what we learned over here and make it fit here. And I think we're going to learn a lot from those cities as they continue to progress.
Jordan.
Yeah, when you're talking about affordability, I think, is there any effort, or will there ever be any effort, to look back to the last 20 years of policy making and see what the policies implemented by the city council and the various mayors? We've got a lot to choose.
I was like, careful. No, I'm just
but like, what is the role of some of those policies in the affordability crisis that we have? Because we've had a lot of inflationary policies that I could probably go into, and I'm sure you do go into those too. But can you describe any effort to look back at that and go, we made some mistakes back then on some of these things, and that's part of the affordability crisis. It's not necessarily that we can always tax people more.
Yeah.
But what role is there ever going to be an effort to look at that and kind of analyze that and try to correct some of those mistakes?
Yeah, I think so. I'm always trying to look forward, but I think some of the policies so give me an example of a policy that you said, Joy, this probably impacted this. Give me one right now.
Yeah, I'll give you one I support.
Yes.
The minimum wage hike.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, but it's
Yeah.
an inflationary policy. That's why when the new mayor has her campaign thing, why is the slice of pizza so expensive? Well, you're paying the person $21, $22 to make that slice of pizza, so the pizza's going to be more expensive. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So that's just one. I could go into like property tax levies, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
If we made it more expensive to build housing, the council recently passed 18% increase in permit fees.
Yeah.
That makes it more expensive to build housing.
And if I could take that one back, I probably would, just because there was so much. And what you're talking about was a vote that we had that SDCI put more fees on folks that were building an ADU in their, just on permit fees, just on regular small mom and pop buildings. And that's one that I wish I could have that one back. But it's, yes. So anyways, so I don't.
But you could lower it if you wanted.
Yeah, we could, absolutely. So I think I think what there is appetite for on council is not to look back and say, hey, let's dismantle this policy, whatever. It's to learn from those and say, okay, moving forward, let's not do that, but let's think about when we are, for example, when we are saying, hey, we want to make sure that a grocery store can be able to operate functionally in Seattle and not have to raise their prices here because it just operationally, is harder. Can we figure out a way where, we have potentially laws that are shifted towards like more officers responding to grocery stores? Like the grocery stores have asked us to think of them as an essential line in Seattle and not your traditional big box store. And so can we make sure that when we are passing laws that might add taxes, are we excluding them? Can we make sure that we're going to the state to advocate so they can get out of certain taxes because they're a necessity, they're a lifeline to folks? So I think there's appetite for that. Just understanding, just thinking about not all business is the same business in Seattle. And I think that's going to be key. I'd also like to see more, and I've talked about this, public-private partnerships. I remember like yesterday I was, and I won't say the name because we're on the Seattle channel, but there was a gap in funding for a certain project, and this group was like, we don't want money from this company in Seattle because we think all the money should come from the government. And I was like, well, the money you're getting from us came from them too, but okay. But it was just that piece of we don't want that. And I just would like to see more openness to, if we want this outcome, they weren't going to brand the field in their logo. They just wanted to, probably just get a tax break, right? But also fund this project as well. So I would like to see more of that with those, with the outcomes.
Could you see just on the grocery store question? Because I've heard this thrown out there that rather than going kind of full public grocery stores, maybe there could be some kind of program working with some of the grocery store companies to incentivize opening grocery stores in an area of the city.
Yeah,
where
we
maybe
passed.
It's not penciling.
Yeah, we passed that council. Okay, prime example, PCC downtown. They closed up shop. They were, 10, 15,000 square feet down there. They were pretty large, their footprint. They closed up shop because of, it wasn't profitable and some things, some public safety challenges downtown. They worked with OED. They came back. They opened up half the size, 5,000 square feet, and they're not a full-service grocery store. They close at a certain time. They're not open on the weekends at a certain time. They don't have the full-service piece that you would if you went to a Safeway or QFC or other places. I think that model in different neighborhoods is going to be key when we're thinking about different grocery stores around the city, but also, too, making sure that they're also clean, that the police are responding in time if they're having a disturbance, making sure that they can operate functionally in our city. Those things, like I was talking to a grocery store that was having a hard time with some freight delivery because SDOT was doing some type of construction and they messed up the road and they didn't even think about that grocery store having access. And so now they have to drive around a certain area just to get in and it adds another 30 minutes. And so that adds to the driver's time. And then all these different things play a part in that.
Another question from the audience?
And as you see, I'm going to answer questions long, so I only have to do short. So I only have a couple of questions. No, I'm just fine.
Yeah, Joy, you are wonderful. I have two questions, but you can make them brief. One is Microsoft this last week came out with their suggestions to increase housing, ban Amazon, full-page ad in the Sunday paper. Curious your thoughts about that. And number two, we have a remarkable new King County executive, I think, shares a lot of your values and beliefs. Talk about ways the city can more effectively partner with King County to accomplish things as well.
That is a great question. And someone in here gave me this joke, so I'm going to steal their line. That the county and the city are two elephants looking at each other through a straw. And that's what and I always tell people I want to remove that straw so we can see how big we are as elephants and we can start walking together. And so some of the projects that I think the first, especially in our district, is going to be the crisis care clinic. Can we get that up and running? Can we make sure that neighborhood is not negatively impacted, that it's a positive to that community? And also, too, that we also clean up the area around there as well so we make it a vibrant, Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill is the nightlife heartbeat center of Seattle. It is not downtown anymore. It is Capitol Hill. That is the economic driving force at night in our city. And there are a lot of things where the county and the city have just been asleep at the wheel on. Public health is one of them. That is huge. Another piece is our wastewater. When you get a bill, 25% of your bill is from King County Waste. And when their rates go up, our rates go up. And so I think there can be a lot of connection there and collaboration, making sure that goes that's stabilized as well. I think our King County executive is great. I might be a little biased there because he is my brother-in-law. But so I'll always talk highly of him, but he knows.
Nepotism.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you. He attaches to me more than I to him, but just playing. But I think the one thing that I'm looking forward to with Mayor Wilson, with the executive in Zahalai, is that they don't really come from government. They weren't really, they weren't really bred in that piece. And so maybe there'll be a little bit more collaboration and understanding a sense of urgency for the community and thinking outside the box on a lot of issues. And I've so far in the last 2-3 weeks, I've seen a commitment from King County way more than I did before, where people are responsive. They're saying, hey, how can we work on this? Or, hey, I saw this, I'm thinking about you. Do you want help from the county? Or, hey, how can we help? I've seen a lot more of that from departments. Council members were always great. I had a great working relationship with Councilmember Mosqueda and other folks, but I think I've seen it more from departments who have reached out to our office about certain issues in our district, which has been, very, very hopeful.
Yeah, and the Microsoft, Amazon house.
I didn't see that article or the ad.
Brad's proposal.
I haven't, so I don't want to talk out of it.
Yeah. So I get.
I've heard you talk a lot about being focused on hyper-local.
Yeah.
And in your district, hyper-local, both at Jackson,
Yeah.
is a mess. And it's been a mess
Yeah.
since, in the last administration. It's been on the radar a long time.
Yeah.
Kiermai's been there on the street. Everybody's been there. Tell me your 3.5 yard strategy for
Yeah.
that area and what's going to happen and when and how and what do you need?
Well, I'm glad it's in District 2, so it's outside. It is.
It's not her problem.
Yeah. So I will tell you this: when I get an email and it's not in my district, I go straight to over. No, just playing. But I will say this: 12th and Jackson is. I mean, obviously it's Rainier, so it is not my district, but it's right across the street from the district, and it affects how things that are going up Jackson on 23rd or into our neighborhood over by Bailey Gatzard School. All these things. I think the 3.5 yard approach. The first thing I would do is send 2 to 3 mobile treatment centers to 12th and Jackson, and that hasn't been done yet. That's been mobile treatments centers. I have no idea. I wasn't pulling the levers on the 7th floor, or honestly, I've had issues in my district where if I just worried about 12th and Jackson, I wouldn't be able to work Pike and Pine. So I was focused on Pike and Pine and those issues because Capitol Hill, people in Eastlake who are challenged with the J line, and those restaurants right now are doing. A woman just did like $30-$40 for a lunch. Because they don't have any guests coming in. So I've been hyper-focused about different neighborhoods, but the first thing I would do is send out mobile treatments to 12th and Jackson. I would also have, and there's different strategies with police, with the dealers that are dealing some of those drugs that are also spilling into First Hill as well. That would be an approach that we would use, but it would start with mobile treatment centers for people.
Do you see? And let me ask a follow-up question on this. Council President, do you see a role? Back in I think it was 23, you voted for this. The council passed a new misdemeanor drug possession and public drug use law, right? And there had been, because of the Blake issue, there had been no law against possession of hard drugs in the city of Seattle, and you all took a couple of tries, but you all ended up passing a law finally. Do you see a role for the use of that law in dealing with stuff like open-air drug markets, whether it's at the Blade or 12th and Jackson, or is this all a kind of treatment-centered or social service-centered outreach?
So the drug use law, are you talking about the one in 2023? I wasn't.
The misdemeanor possession law.
Yeah, so I didn't vote for that. I wasn't on council at the time.
I'm
You-
sorry.
you-
I'm
no,
sorry.
you're
No,
fine.
you're
I'm-
right. You're
but
right.
I
You're
had-
absolutely right.
but it's
You
okay.
came out for it at the time.
I did. I would have said yes to align with the state
Sorry,
law.
my
No, you're good. What was the?
was in the campaign.
So I didn't vote for it. He was thinking
My
2023.
candidate was against it.
Yeah, she was against a lot of stuff, which was good. But it was cool. I love her. She's great.
Before it, but she didn't listen anyway.
It's okay. She was cool. I got so much respect for her.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Do you see a role for, I guess maybe more broadly, like the kind of police arrest piece of this in dealing with open air drug markets like we have down in Little Saigon?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard people say, and actually I heard Scott Lindsay on your show, who I thought was phenomenal, articulating some of this, saying, we're not going to arrest our way out of this. We're not going to treat ourselves out of this. Like, is it a mix of everything? I would just like to see more. I don't know the answer for this. I do not have the magic pill about fentanyl, because what we are experiencing here is the same as Hastings Streets in Vancouver. It's the same in some San Francisco. It's the same, the Tenderloin. It's the same in Philly, right? You've seen it. I've seen it in Phoenix at bus stops.
Skid Row in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, MacArthur Park, yeah.
What I am supporting are just more accessible treatment facilities and mobile treatments where someone's on the street and they say, Joy, or whoever, I want out, that they can be able to get in a car or get treatment right then and there. I'll tell you one example. We were walking around for the crisis care clinic to look at things. I was with Department of Health. I was with our friends at King County. I was with some city officials, and we were walking around, and I saw a girl. Her name is T, and she was on the street, and I grew up with T. And I said, hey, do I need to call your mom? What do you need? Do you need money? Do you need whatever it is? And at that moment, she was like, yeah, I need you to call my mom. And there was no number that I could call besides her mother to say, come get her, she is ready right now at all. I don't know how long that would take to get someone like that help, but I caught her at a moment where she recognized me. I snapped back from the street stuff to, oh, I remember playing basketball with you, and there was no one I could call to be like, hey, can we get her off? Can we get her help right now? And I think that's what our city is waiting for. That's what we can figure out, and that's what I'm going to be pushing for this year.
I think one more question, way in the back.
Yeah, so Elaine Gibbons, I have a question about the World Cup, proper football, as we mentioned. It is a time when the world will be looking at the city of Seattle. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about and what your council members are thinking about in terms of functioning well, showing up well as a city and being ready for such a significant event.
We are so excited for the World Cup.
Question about the World Cup.
The World Cup, yes, the World Cup. How excited we are, number one, for proper football. What would you call American football? Just American football? Seahawks. What did you say?
I call it throwing and catching ball.
Oh, throwing and catching ball. Okay. And hitting, right? Okay, so excited about World Cup. I think we all are. The three things that are on my mind is, number one, can we make sure the city is safe? That is throughout the whole city, making sure that transportation safety, making sure that a ton of people are going to be in a small space at one time. I will never forget the day where I saw Barack Obama get elected in 2008, and we were all standing on the mall like sardines, and no one had a cell service. Couldn't get out. It was just too much. So just making sure that the city is safe. The second thing is going to be transportation, moving people around, making sure our buses are running, making sure the traffic is flowing, that we have enough operators, making sure people are flowing back and forth into the city, that Sound Transit is running properly, that our G line on Madison is running up and down in a nice flow, and all of the different components on transportation is key. And the third thing is the economic impact. There are a ton of businesses that are outside downtown, and a lot of people get tired of talking about downtown, and I love them because they're like, Joy, what about us over here in this neighborhood? What about us? Making sure that those funds get distributed into different neighborhoods. So pulling people outside of SoDo and into different areas and neighborhoods, and just making it accessible and walkable and those things. So when people see that we had the World Cup, that they're like, Seattle's a beautiful city, that we can knock out all the stereotypes that people think about us that we've seen on Fox News or other things of Seattle dying and all these things, that people see that Seattle's a beautiful, beautiful city.
Council President Joy Hollingsworth, thank you for being our
Thank
guest
you.
tonight at the Black Table.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.